Welcome to the Production Talk podcast with me, Jan of mixartist.com.au. In this podcast series, we celebrate the modern way of producing music. We want to talk about all things related to songwriting, recording at home, and music production. So if you produce your music at home, this is the place to be. Please subscribe and recommend this podcast to all your friends. This is the Production Talk podcast, episode 42. Yeah, welcome back to another episode of the Production Talk podcast. Before we get into this interview today, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the country that we are meeting here today, the Arakwal people of the Bundjalung Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Good. So today with me is Mr. Bobby Alu. We've been working on this interview for a while, and I'm so glad that you're here today. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for the invitation. Really appreciate it.
It's good to have you. So we're having coffee going. We just had lunch together. It's a beautiful sunny day, so perfect to chat about music.
Perfect.
Let's get into where you're coming from and what your history is. How old were you when you realized that you were a musician?
That's a good question. Well, I feel like I've been a musician my whole life, but I think I didn't realize until I was probably 19 or 20.
Okay.
Yeah. So a bit of a late bloomer, you could say.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But a bit slow to the to the realization. But I took my time to get there, but it definitely hit with hard, yes, that this is what I will do for the rest of my life.
Your calling.
Yeah.
And what instruments did you start with?
Sure. Well, I think the reason why I didn't realise I would be a musician my whole life is because music was always there and available. So my mother's from a little Polynesian country called Samoa, and music is ingrained in the culture there. They sing before breakfast, they basically sing all the time. So
Great.
Obviously singing was always around. My mum constantly singing and family members that were visiting. But then there's also a little Polynesian drum called a pate, which is a hollowed out piece of wood. And I've been playing that since I was about 4 or 5, and also the ukulele. That's another instrument that my mum played. So, it's just so funny to think about it, that these were like, quotation toy instruments of mine, and they've basically become my career.
Wow. That's great. And can you just list all the instruments that you play these days?
Sure. Well, I guess I play obviously ukulele and all kinds of drums. I really love percussion. So, when I first jumped on a drum kit, that was just such a beautiful feeling. So I played drums as well, and I really got into Latin and African percussion. So I do lots of hand drumming as well. And then, I play bass and guitar. And, I'll give anything a go. I think what I really love to do is make music. So if there's an instrument that makes a sound, I'll do my best in trying to make it, feel and sound good.
Well, that's basically you're an entire band.
Some days,
in one person. And do you play the keys?
I don't. I try to. Like I said, it's got a sound, and I definitely try to, work it into my recordings and my creativity.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't put my hand up for a gig.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, right. Okay. And then when did the artist Bobby Alu come to life? Where's that coming from? And, when did you start? Did you start by yourself or with a band? Or tell us about the beginnings. Well,
it's great that this is a production, I guess, about recording this podcast, because that is where it was born for me. When I discovered that I wanted to be a musician, I did this university degree or this course in Queensland called the Bachelor of Popular Music. And basically that degree covered lots of different things, songwriting, a little bit of musical theory. It covered production, and music business.
Cool.
And all sorts of things. Like there was a big umbrella. So I think the purpose of that course was to, encourage young musicians to kind of find a way in. And I think you could even do a year after that to become a music teacher. So there was lots of things that they were hoping for. And what I found in that course is that I really enjoyed recording songs. So it was really hard to wrangle people to get them to play different instruments on, your song. So I ended up just doing it all myself. So basically, I was like literally learned how to turn Pro Tools on the first day, and the next day at uni I was in the studio trying to make music. And then after 4 years of the degree and this free studio time, I had 10 songs that I was happy with, and that's the beginning of Bobby Alu.
Fantastic. And that became your first album?
That's the first album, yeah. So I have a sneaky goal that I want that album to pay for my uni degree. And so far, it pretty much almost has. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a great goal to have.
Totally, yeah. And unassuming, like I didn't set out to, that wasn't my goal during uni. My goal was just to make a song.
Okay. And then you kept on going and you released more albums. And how did you produce the next album?
Sure.
Did you record at home or did you hire a studio?
Yeah, I worked in a studio. So the first album was all at university, all by me. And then I basically used that album to, once I, meeting lots of different people, and I, met a really good friend of mine, a collaborator, called Paulie B, who lives in Brisbane. He's got his own studio, and I worked with him on the next album. So, we sort of became a bit of a writing duo, and he's a bass player essentially, and I'm a drummer, so, there's a good fit there. And, then I've got some other friends that joined the band, and so, it became more of a collaborative effort the next time round.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in your opinion, what are the advantages of actually hiring a studio and, just get into there as a musician for a couple of days and let somebody else do the engineering? Or alternatively, when you record yourself, being the Pro Tools operator and aiming the microphones, what difference does it make in your opinion?
It makes lots of difference, and I feel like there's lots of advantages. And I guess the best thing for me to like work with other people was basically just to learn more. And, to find the way that I like, or to know more about me in the studio. Because I think what I really enjoyed and what was confronting when I first started recording myself was how honest a recording is.
Oh, yeah.
And it's all there. And I think that's been a really big teacher for me to journey through. And then when you throw other people in the mix and a bigger studio, and there's obviously there's lots of different levels and aspects that come in. It's just such a great, I love it. It's such a great experience. But I think moving to a bigger studio, the first thing I noticed was, oh wow, there's I like this too. But there's I don't have to run everything myself, and there's ideas that we can bounce off, and essentially, for me it worked. But it also, there's so many levels. It depends on the people. There's lots of things.
Of course. Okay. Yeah. Right. So does it make a difference for you if you perform and also engineer at the same time? Do you feel like it's taking from your creative musical flow?
Yeah, I believe it does. I think. But it's interesting because it also depends on what you're used to. So, if you're used to kind of running the tools yourself and singing, and you've got this workflow going on, then and you've worked on that, and all of a sudden you're not in control of that. Sometimes that doesn't feel right. And, when you're trying to get a good vocal take, you really sort of want to do everything to be in the zone.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think for me personally, I like not running it at the same time because it puts me in a different mindset. However, when I'm writing, I love doing it myself because I feel like it's quicker, Yeah. So there's a different aspect there. There's like performance versus creativity, and sometimes in that creative phase, you do get a take that you can't get again. But yeah, that's just at the moment. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, cool. That's great. And who knows? It might change in the future. And,
Exactly.
We all always evolve, and yeah, that's interesting to see. Cool.
And I think that's what I'm really into. That word evolve. Like I really feel like experiences in the studio alter your, what you learn and your perspectives and evolving is such a beautiful thing. So you find out what you like, you find out what you don't like, and then it all just pieces it together. And yeah, so literally, if we have this podcast again in 2 years, I might have a different answer.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. And I'm probably going to be a completely different person as well.
Yeah.
I know I'm a different person than I was 2 years ago. So that makes a lot of sense. So from your first album, Bobby Alu, it went via Take It Slow and then to Flow, which to me, that's a record that I just love it to bits.
Oh,
and
glad to hear that.
Then you took it to the next level and released the same album again without vocals as an instrumental, and it works just equally well, if not better sometimes. It's amazing that depending on my mood, sometimes I choose the vocal version and sometimes I choose the instrumental one.
100%.
How do you write songs that work without vocals and are still so entertaining? How do you come up with, ideas like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, when we were creating, so my friend and I, Paulie B and myself, we recorded Flow. We wrote and recorded Flow over, it took a good 3 or 4 years.
Oh, wow.
And there were gaps in between. And I think that having that space in between mixes and so forth is really important. It was important for that album, because you get so trapped and so consumed by this song and you're in it and you just want to get it finished and you're so in it. And you really like deliberating over like, oh, is the tempo too fast? Is it too slow? Is there too much shaker? Is there should we put another guitar in? You're just so in this world. Have a 6-month break, come back and listen to it. You've completely forgotten about all those questions that you had and you're just like, oh, this doesn't work, or, oh, this works, and so that's basically how we made that album. And what we discovered as we were going through these versions is that we really loved it without the vocals, like some of the intricate parts and some of this deep thought that we put in. And then so during the album creation, we were always like, we really need to release this without vocals, because there's so many moods that we created or we tried to create with just the music that we felt like they stood on their own and they were up for interpretation by listeners.
I love all these tiny little percussion elements. They're very playful, and it takes me a couple of listens to discover all of them. There's so many layers, so it's quite amazing. It's you have a way to tell a story with your drums that I haven't seen that too often. So
cool.
I'm quite amazed by how you do that.
Oh, thanks.
Do you think about stories when you perform? Is there something where you think about, okay, now I need to press the intensity or let go or make it feel uplifting or sad? Well, what's going on in your mind when you perform these takes?
Yeah, totally. Well, actually, I think the goal is, funnily enough, is to be, like for me anyway, it's to be completely 100% sensitive to everything that's happening, but at the same time be 100% relaxed, completely, in flow. That's what the whole album is about. It's about finding those moments and the realization that you can't have them all the time. But yeah, I think, for me, lots of those is just responding to the feeling. And, when you are in flow, you aren't questioning anything that you're doing. It's almost like there is no reason, you're just doing it. And I think lots of experiences before this album, really helped me perform it. And one of those was I went to Ghana in West Africa to play drums for a month.
Wow.
I literally I tracked down some contacts and I lived with 4 drum masters and we played drums 8 hours a day every day. you know,
Whoa, how cool is that?
It was so cool.
Oh, wow.
So it was pretty dodgy at times, but definitely really cool. And that was such a beautiful experience. And I really wanted to, I loved the music in Ghana, so I wanted to really get in there and have that immersion. You know, and that's just, I think just there's so many cultures that have such beautiful music, and the thing that I've noticed in that music is it's just that at ease, it's simple, and they're just so in the moment. And I think that's a real, I think that's also a trick to recording having a good take or a good performance, is just like being in the moment, not thinking about like whether it's going to sell how many of these you're going to sell, or, you know, like how good does it sound, or it's just sort of like trying to connect with that moment. Yeah.
Oh, lovely. So it goes back to something that I've come across many times when speaking to people on this podcast, that, you know, for good takes, you can't overthink. You know, the absence of overthinking seems to be like a common denominator that I get back from almost everybody.
Totally. It's just a strange thing, isn't it? Because it's, I don't know, it just, you have to think all the time. So how can you not think? But
exactly.
It's strange to hear, but it's also just, I completely agree. It's 100% true. Yeah.
So you do a lot of music with Paulie, you mentioned. Are there any other band members that you regularly work with?
Yeah, there has been over the years, definitely. I really believe in collaboration again, for that word evolve. You know, I think it's just, you know, there is, the people that you spend time with, you kind of become them. And it's the same with music in a way, because they inspire you, and it's just, there's just so much amazing musicians and music out there. At the moment, the drummer I play with is a guy from Sydney called Declan Kelly. Really amazing drummer, singer, and multi-instrumentalist and producer. He has a studio in Sydney. He's a wonderful human being, and so we do lots at the moment. Paulie B plays bass, I play ukulele, and Declan plays drums, and that's a trio which is quite mighty. It's a really fun synergy. And I also actually locally I play a lot with a guy named Peter Hunt, who's the singer from Cooey, and just an amazing songman. And we do lots of gigs at the New Brighton markets, actually, which is fantastic. And there's another guy who lives in Gooningary just up the road, Lyndon Lester, bass player.
I've worked with Lyndon. He's amazing on the bass. Amazing,
incredible player, good sensitive player. And the drummer I use it from Lennox Head, Grant Garrethy. Yeah. And so there's some just
Grant's a legend. Absolute legend.
There's just so many great musicians around, you know.
Yes, yeah, right. I guess, your standards are probably very high when you look at drummers.
Totally.
You wouldn't just work with anybody, I guess.
Totally, yeah, definitely. But cool. I don't know. It's just, it's there's something about, finding that, like it's just finding that connection with people. I sort of think of it like chatting. Sometimes there's people that you can just chat to all day, and I don't know why. It just, you guys fit. There's a thing that happens, and then some people who you respect and admire perhaps, and there's maybe the flow isn't there, and for whatever reason, there's nothing wrong with that. And I feel it's the same with music. Some people you click with, some you don't, and that's cool.
Yeah, right. So when you produce in the studio and you do basically most of the instruments yourself, then on stage you have to let go and allow other people to perform. That must be difficult at times, because, I guess a drummer will interpret your performance differently and not exactly play it like you did. Is that
totally.
Is that something that causes friction at times?
It's a great question, because I think when I first started doing that particular thing, it became a friction, and it became a weight that I could have carried, and then I've since discarded it, because I think what I love about lots of these musicians is what they do, and I really always respect other people's flavors, and for me that's that's life. And I think the colors of different musicians are important, not just for the music but for them, for like every musician, when they feel like they're doing their own thing, obviously will play better, because they love what they're doing. And so I encourage that for sure. There might be parts that I've played but I'm like, you do your thing.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
I'm not
Okay.
so I'm not so regiment on like, no, the film needs to be like this. You know, I'm much
Okay.
more into the vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's good to hear. And I found that, there is a certain common sound in your albums. All of them sound just very beautifully transparent. I never
Cool.
hear the production in any way. It never sounds like, an engineer EQ'd something or did something. It's just pure. And it's also extremely wide. You
So
seem to
wide.
pan things really far.
Yeah.
I guess more courageous than some other people would be. And at the same time, it's also really pure and also warm, I find.
That's great. Yeah.
Is this something that you do deliberately, or is it just the way it turns out when you mix?
They are definitely deliberate, everything you mentioned. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
And like, like we've been talking about, it's about experience and just kind of doing it over and over and recording and having successes and having failures. And it's just kind of a sound that's developed. It get developed brick by brick. And, lots for me is the natural sound. I feel at the moment, that's what I resonate with. It's really like we're not really trying to change the sound of the instrument. We're just trying to make it feel good, through headphones or through speakers, which is such a, that's the journey for sure. And, I find that making it super wide can really offer lots of space for other instruments. And like you said, there's lots of little parts. So it's like finding the balance of the right space to let these parts sing or do their thing. Yeah.
Yeah. What always amazes me is that, the songs never feel overloaded, but there's so much in there. There's so many elements, but it's never too much. It's just, I find it very tasteful the way
I'm
you
glad.
put your songs together.
Yeah, I think it's that sensitivity thing again too. We've had lots of goes, and it doesn't go so well all the time. But
Can you talk me through the typical, I guess, journey of a song from songwriting? How does a song come together? Do you write the songs all yourself, or is that a collaboration again? And is it more a sudden thing, or does it drag on over a long time? And now, do the songs end up in the studio the same way as they were initially written, or do you change them much in production? Can you share a bit on that?
Sure. Well, it's first and foremost, I love it. And that is the fuel. So I have this I think, when I realized that I could record on my computer and literally it was it was Microsoft Record or something, it wasn't even an interface. It was just, I think I'd record something and then I'd play it in through the speakers and then record the speakers with me doing another layer, and it sounded terrible. But just that action was such a great feeling that I've tried so many different ways to create now because I'm just cool. Oh, this is cool, and I don't think there's a way that works the best. There's just so many ways, and I really like to try lots of them. So, for instance, lately, what I might do is I usually start with an instrument either the ukulele, it's mainly the ukulele, and I'll just kind of have it either a chord progression or a melody, that I kind of feel like is either a good chorus or verse. So I'll be and I'll just kind of riff along on that. And then usually I wait for something to stick, as in I'll do it over and over again. And then that usually is the start of something, whether I put words to it or whether I'll record that moment and then listen back to it and go, okay, where are we going here? And then there's so many directions, I could put a beat to it, I could put a bass line to it, I could write words to it. That seems to be a way that I use a lot. Yeah, but like I said, that how long's a piece of string?
Yeah, of
Sometimes I hear a phrase I can see on your fridge, a dress up disco. Like that's a great chorus, and like you can sort of like brainstorm. All right, well, we need a disco beat, so then I'll just start putting a disco beat, and then maybe like a bass line, and then start thinking along those. I love it. It's like dress up disco. Like there's 2 Ds alliteration. It's like all right, let's get the Ds playing on. Like it's.
Oh, wow.
It can turn into an avalanche. So, and I kind of feel like no way is the wrong way or a bad way.
Yeah.
It's, because you're dealing with creativity and sensitivity, it's like, I don't feel like bagging my own ideas at the start, I feel like there is a time to be critical.
Yeah.
But in that initial period of birthing, it's like.
Open mind. Blank. Yeah.
Totally. Yep. Surprise yourself.
Everything is allowed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. Excellent. And how long does it take for you to record? I guess the average song, is that a lengthy process? You meant one album took 3 years, but there were breaks.
Totally. I think, it changes. I really actually don't know what works better for me at the moment. I definitely respect time. I feel like in a world that things happen so quickly, like, I'll finish that. We've took 4 years to make that album, and then, in 6 months, the way that the industry is these days, people are going, okay, where's the next one? It's just like, well, I don't have 4 years up my sleeve, And, that is a point that's difficult for lots of musicians to react to. It's like, well, man, I put all this time in and it just doesn't last, like it used to.
Yeah.
And like that's a whole nother conversation, another journey. But then sometimes when it's on, like creatively, I've been doing these little videos at the moment just to kind of like spark up my creativity, where I sort of try and write a song in an hour and then I record and film it. And so in like 3 hours, I've basically got a video and a song all done, written and recorded, And
cool.
Like that can happen. And, and so 3 hours or 3 years. I don't know. It's kind of like, and everything in between. So
everything's possible. Yeah,
there is, and I think with Flow, the reason why it took so long is because we had a vision, and it was really important that the messages of like, there's lots of mental health messages in there, and well-being, and being a good human, like. We really wanted to get that across sonically and lyrically. So we took our time to make sure that it felt right.
Yeah, right. I find that sometimes fast workflows can be really good because it prevents overthinking. If you just
that's a really good point.
Too much time.
Yeah.
In my experience, when people record a song, they get excited, but this excitement fades over time.
So true.
And if the song isn't finished before the excitement falls below a certain threshold,
100%,
then it gets annoying, and you can get caught in a loop. And I've listened to a lot of projects from friends of mine who asked me for advice, and they said, I've been working on it for 2 years and it's still not ready, and what am I doing wrong? And then often we just listen to an earlier version. It was actually much better.
Wow.
That happens quite a lot.
It does, doesn't it? It's demo-itis, you get
demo-itis,
to the demo too. And
that's what they call it. Yeah, that's right.
It's a really good point.
How can one break that? When you're caught in one of those loops. Have you ever experienced that yourself?
Oh, 100%. And I think that's why at the moment I've been doing these quick fire songs, because, like we're not trying to cure the world of cancer. Like we're writing music here, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. That's the worst that can happen.
Totally. And, I've been on this bit of a songwriting trip. I'm doing lots. I'm writing a couple of songs a week, and I've got this whole just do it situation. It's just get it done. It doesn't have to be the best song in the world. It just, I really do feel like you have to stimulate your creativity, and it's like an old car. Like as soon as you stop using it, after a year or so, it's all seized up. You've got to get you've got to get everything flowing, and creativity. 100% it works like that. So, whether that's writing a song or being using the studio as a creative tool, and that's what I've been doing, for the last 2 years is just getting my creativity, like moving and personally, psychologically, it's like it makes me feel good. So, I've gotta encourage that.
That's great. Say, would you be happy to share what your home studio looks like?
Yeah.
In your
so
words,
simple.
Okay. Yeah. What's
totally.
in there?
Well, oh man. So basically, I have 2 setups, and one setup was actually gifted to me. Well, it's on hold. It's a friend of mine who has. It's literally 2 inputs. It's an old MacBook, so it's not connected to the internet. So I think if there's any updates, it's like running an older version of Pro Tools. If there's any updates, it's going to crash, but it runs fine as it is. And it's got a Apogee Duet, I think it's called.
Oh, yeah.
So there's 2 ins. It always works, touch wood. And I have 2 SM7s, and that's it. I do everything with them. So basically I sit like at the desk, and it's all just with a mouse. And I've got the 2 mics that are already set up, and there's basically amps. There's a drum kit. I've got all my guitars and ukuleles to my right, all in reaching distance. It's a scene after I go in there, it's all clean. 5 hours later, it's just stuff everywhere. And then I clean up and start again the next day. But that's it. For me, like in terms of my creativity at the moment, simple is best. I know that it works, and I basically, I don't worry about spill. Like I'm working in the loft of my place, and sometimes there's birds, or there's fencing going on, or there's like there's the garbage truck comes past, and isolation is not the goal for me. The goal is just to get these ideas out and to work them out, and then to bank them. So basically it's not spending too long on them. It's just kind of like have them there for reference. Yeah. So I can go back and listen. Yeah.
Excellent.
So that's my go-to setup at the moment.
Well, the Apogee converters, they have got a good reputation. Sorry, I'm getting techie here.
No,
but,
it's fine. Yeah.
As long as they run, just use them for as long as you can.
Yeah, cool.
They're really good.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, so I'd like to talk about, gigs for a moment. How do you prepare yourself and your band for, the big festival gigs that you play?
Yeah.
How much rehearsals go into that, and how much planning do you put in a show before all of this happens on the big stage?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it changes as the years go on. I remember the first ever gig I had at Blues Fest. I was pretty fresh and we rehearsed like every day for months to get everything right, every moment, and played. It was a great gig. I can't actually remember how it went, but I remember feeling that I needed to be on top of my game. Completely 100%. That was the first time I played Blues Fest. The next time I was playing drums for Xavier Rudd, and I literally met him the week prior at a party, and he said to me, "Oh, you play drums? Yeah, that's right. Do you want to have a jam?" And I was like, "Yeah, cool, sounds good." And we had a half an hour jam at his house, and then he said the next day, he's like, "Oh, let's play a gig. Let's do Blues Fest." And I'm like, okay. And so...
Okay, that would freak you out, I guess.
Well, it was an hour set, and we'd only had a half an hour practice. And so he's told me to listen to a couple of songs. So I'm like listening to these songs over and over. I'd never used in-ear monitors before, and they had set me up with in-ears. So I'm standing side stage. There's like 20,000 people there about to go on. I barely know the guy. And I'm like, this isn't how I imagined my first gig on main stage would ever go down, and and it went great. It was amazing, and it was that thing again of like tapping into trusting the moment and trusting that I've had lots of different gigs, and I did rehearse every day for those Blues Fest shows years ago. So I know that there's stuff there. So, you know, I think lots of musicians, I feel like we get in our own way a lot, you know, because we're sensitive. You know, you need to be sensitive to create, you know, and that's not just music, it's just like any creative person. And then at times, I don't know how, but you have to turn off that sensitivity because it's not going to serve you. Yeah. That's just my opinion. And yeah, just trusting in the moment. And so the gig went great, and then basically, then I jumped on the road, and for 5 years I was playing drums with him, traveling around the world.
Whoa, what a story.
Yeah, it was insane, you know. And
how did you manage your nerves in this moment before you went on stage? You know, it must have been terrifying.
Yeah, I was definitely terrified. But
do you still have stage fright these days?
Always.
Does it happen?
Yeah.
Are you still nervous?
I do, but I think I'm at peace with it now. I feel like if you get nervous, then you're doing something right. It means that you care about it. And it's so now when I get like a tight stomach, I'm like, I try and like sit in it, and I'm like, all right, what's going on here? It's like, and it's just because it means a lot to me because I love to do it. So yeah, I welcome that now. It's hard when you're singing because it makes you lose breath, you know? And so like, I think trying to breathe into it is I think that's what I did. I can't really remember, but in terms of preparing for gigs now, it's, you know, like there's lots of mental preparation, lots of you know, rehearsal if you need it, but I think the main thing is breathing through those nerves and just being like present on stage. Yeah.
Okay. Do you always tour with the same lineup, with the same group of musicians, or is that like a pool of musicians?
Yeah, it's a pool. It's you know, and I think I realized that that's what, you know, that is on my side where, you know, I can be versatile. And I think when I realized that, because, you know, it's the music, it's a hard industry if you make all these walls, if you put up all these walls or these, like, you know, these sort of things that you have to do. You know, if I had to play with the same 3 people every gig I did, I wouldn't do many gigs. That's just the realness of it, you know. And some people are fortunate where they can do that, and that's a no deal. That's a deal breaker for them, and I respect that for sure. But for me, you know, I can do solo gigs, I can play drums for other people, I can do duo gigs, I can do trio, I can do 4-piece, 5-piece, 6-piece, like, and I love it all. And I think that having that flexibility has been an advantage for me, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about stage sound for a moment. You know, I'm sure you have experienced all the colors of the rainbow there, from
Definitely.
probably fantastic to also probably pretty poor.
Yeah.
What can musicians do? From, you know, there's always the sound engineer, which is a bit out of a musician's control. You might have luck or not.
Yeah.
But what can musicians do to get ready for gigs and make sure that everything is there?
That's a great question. I think technically preparation is really important, and preparation can be on like the early level. It can be just like tracking down who the sound engineer is and having a conversation with them, not on the day of the gig.
Yeah.
You know,
but to reach out before and clarify a couple of what inputs you need, and, you know, so there's no surprises, basically.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think I think one thing that I definitely suffered from growing up is, like, you know, I thought it was unprofessional as an emerging musician to not know the language or not know, you know, I would pretend to know, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. But I think it's actually better, I know it's better to just ask questions if you don't understand. You know, I feel like lots of sound guys will have time of day to, if you ask them a question, you go like, oh, hello, you know, I'm playing a gig there next week, and they're like, oh, send me your stage plot. And, like, you know, you, instead of hanging up and then going, oh my God, what's a stage plot? Just asking, you know, hey, I haven't done that many gigs. What is a stage plot?
Okay.
You know, and then they can kind of share with you their perspective. And, you know, I think sound guys get a bad rap. Like, lots of people sort of think, oh, they're grumpy. And it's because you tell them that how many inputs you have 10 minutes before you're about to go on. You know, I think that's a big thing is preparation and conversation, for sure.
Yeah.
is one side, and another side is knowing what you like, and I think that only happens through experience and doing lots of gigs and making mistakes. Like I know that I like stage sound low as possible.
Yeah.
When it gets too loud, then I don't perform well.
Okay.
And I think that's personal. I've played with other musicians that like it loud because that's how they feel it. They get in the groove. But yeah, and I've only discovered that after 10 years of like, I think after 10 years of like singing on stage, I'm like, you know what? I think I like it. Quiet.
Cool.
Slow learner.
Yeah, right. Well, that has a lot of advantages. We probably have less feedback and not as much spill, so it probably sounds cleaner as well.
Yep.
So
for sure.
Yeah, cool. Have you got your standard sound guy that you always work with, or do you experience, a new person every single gig?
For sure. I like to have. I think there's big strengths in having the same person, for sure. Like that's preference, but it's not always possible,
of course.
And because it's another band member to pay, basically.
Yeah, of course.
But lots of the time it becomes a deal. Like it becomes a deal breaker. They become part of the band because you realize how important it is. And so I have a guy that I use, James Boundy.
Yep,
Legendary.
He was on this podcast before.
Of course, what a champion.
Absolute legend. Big shout out to James.
Yeah, Boundy. Butler to the Queen, Boundy. So I use him as much as possible, but also, like it's not always possible. I do lots of solo supports, and sometimes they're overseas, and so, like I'll have the house engineer every time. And I think what I've observed is that if same thing, if I just approach them, have a good conversation early about what I need and what they need, then, it goes well.
Yeah. Okay. Communication is the key there.
Oh, totally. Because, you think of like when you're stressed, you don't exactly communicate that clearly. And so it just provides not such a great environment for trying to get a good sound, if you and the sound guy are just like yelling at each other.
Nobody wants that.
I remember really early on, I was doing shows on the Gold Coast and I was playing drums in this hip hop band. And then there was a sound guy who had a really, really, huge reputation of being super grumpy and gruff and, everyone, like no one liked it or enjoyed his company. They're just like, I don't want to play there because of that guy. And I remember realising and finding out that he was really into cricket.
Oh, yeah.
The game, the sport. And so I started talking to him about cricket every time we had a gig there. And like, he was a really nice guy, actually. He just, and so we just like, we developed this banter and basically, we were friendly. Time went on, and my very first show at Blues Fest, he was doing monitors.
Yeah, right.
And so he was like, I haven't seen you in years. It's so good that you're playing Blues Fest. And he gave us the best, on stage sound. And I felt completely comfortable in this environment because it was him. And that's one thing about musicians and techs and this world is like you will come across them again. So it's like, I think number one rule is just don't be a dickhead because expect to see.
Don't burn bridges.
Totally. These guys, they pop up again and again.
Yeah. Okay. Say, if you think about, let's say, a young emerging band, at what stage in their career is a band ready to, hire a sound engineer and find a regular guy to tour with?
Wow. Yeah. I reckon any stage.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I think like even just trying it out is like. Yeah, I don't know. Like, if you can't quite afford it, like sometimes it's you're still learning your instrument. It's like, do you have any friends that are learning to do sound? It's like do it together,
learn it together.
Yeah, exactly. And it's.
That reminds me of my early days.
Yeah, right. It's such a thing. It's such a important member of the band. Because it is. You'll find that it is important to you. Like for some people, it isn't as important. They've got their. They've got their raw sound and they know what to do. But I think it's good to try out at least because then you'll figure out if you want it or not. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So just a couple of weeks ago, you played Blues Fest, which was a big one. And then please correct me if I'm wrong, but you toured a bit afterwards
Yeah.
with another big band. Can you shine some light on that?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Is it true that you played with the Wailers?
Yeah. I opened for the Wailers in Sydney and Melbourne. Yeah.
Please tell me all about it. I'm a huge
Sure.
Wailers fan.
Oh man, it was beautiful. It was amazing. Like having, had a couple of years of not much activity, and then literally last month I had so much going on, and it was, both scary and welcoming. Like it was. I realized how rusty I am. It's like, whoa, that's right. Airport transits and
right.
Just that whole deal. And basically it was a big, I've been doing lots of session drumming for lots of different people. And one of those, like I did some gigs with my good friend Ash Grunwald at Blues Fest, which was great. I also was, at the time, I was at Rocking Horse Studio recording drums for some really good friends of mine, Busby Maru, who are like they're just like, what music they play? It's not country. It's just good pop music,
Cool.
And so, that couple of days in Rocking Horse, and then we supported Midnight Oil at River Stage in Brisbane.
Wow.
Huge, amazing.
Oh, I love that stage.
Oh,
it always
such a
sounds
great
amazing
stage.
there.
Yeah, it really did sound incredible. It was a great moment. And then the next day I had one day rehearsal with Ash for 2 sets at Blues Fest. Then we did our 2 Blues Fest shows, and then I got on a plane and went and did these shows with the Wailers. And so that was a solo Bobby Alu show. So I had a day of like basically what I called like my production rehearsal, where I had everything plugged in and I had like my monitors kind of set up, and I just sort of ran through everything and went to the venues, chatted to the tech team there, and got my sound good to go. And then I did my set, and then the Wailers came on and just blew the roof off. It was great.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, did you get to hang out with them?
Not too much hang out. I met, like, my main thing is that I love the drummer.
Yeah.
Obviously. And so it was really cool to connect with him, Aston Barrett Jr. So he's actually the original bass player son.
Family man's
son. And
wow.
And so his uncle is my favourite drummer of all time, Carlton Barrett, who was the Bob Marley's drummer.
Big respect.
And he plays just like him.
One of my favourites as well.
Ah, great. He plays just like him. And it's like, it was really amazing to see that backstage and to see it, a couple of nights in a row. And he's such a chill, cool guy as well. So it was really nice to make that connection. And it was just a beautiful experience, and to play my own music and, to have that, put that in the back pocket for sure.
Shared the same stage with the Wailers. That's amazing.
So cool. Yeah.
What a dream.
So lucky. Yeah.
It's amazing. Can you talk about your plans for the future? Are you working on new music? Are you working on tours? Is there anything in the pipeline can you spill any beans?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm on this writing trip at the moment. I'm about to release, I've actually got next month, I'm releasing an EP with my mum.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so she, as I said, she's Samoan, and during COVID, I learnt some old Samoan folk songs from her in language. And so we started singing them together, and I literally took 2 mics and recorded them around the coffee table. And then I added, some steel string guitar and bass and some percussion and a few harmonies, and just sort of made a Samoan folk song EP. And I'm going to release that next month with her.
Wow.
Which would be great.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too. It's such a really nice experience to learn these songs. And I'm in a really creative, it's been a creative time for me at the moment. So I'm going to release a new tune at the end of the year, new Bobby Alu song, and probably head to Europe.
Okay. Yeah, right.
Yeah, for some shows. So shows will start up again. So that's basically the year outlook really at the moment.
Okay. Yeah. That's big.
Yeah, it is, isn't
Europe.
it?
Nice.
I know, it's crazy. So it's good to have live music, sort of the cracks are opening and to come through again. So at this very moment, I'm literally just writing lots of songs. Yeah.
And if people want to find out more about you and your music, where can people find you? Have you got a website or social channels that you could mention?
Yeah, sure. If you just put Bobby Alu, Bobby space ALU into the search engine, you will find something. There's a website there, and yeah, lots of all Spotify, Apple Music, Bandcamp. It's everywhere. So you will find it.
Okay. I'll put a couple of links into the show notes.
Thank you.
So at the end of the episode, just click the show notes, click the button, and you'll find Bobby straight away.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all this amazing wisdom with us today. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate the good, thoughtful questions. Thanks.
Thanks, mate. It's really, it stands out to me how relaxed your music is, and it's also in your character and your personality, and it's really nice chatting to you.
Yeah, thanks, Jan.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. Wow, thank you so much, Bobby. This was an amazing interview. I enjoyed every minute of it. So much wisdom. Thank you for sharing. It's really amazing to get this insight into your musical journey and your production skills. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for sharing. If you want to check out Bobby Alu's music, head over to the show notes right here in your podcast application and scroll down to the links in the show notes where you will find links to all of Bobby Alu's social channels and his official website. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate this podcast and give us a little review. That would really make my day. And if you want to reach out to me, please join us in the Production Talk podcast community on Facebook, where you can chat with me if you want to reach out. You can also reach out via my website if you need any help with sound work, especially mixing, of course. That is mixartist.com.au/contact if you need any help finishing your projects. Okay, I hope you had a fantastic time today. I surely did. And I hope to see you again next week. Bye for now.